Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Atomic Salt Live Show. This is a live show where we're going to discuss everything in the tabletop hobby world. I am Wild Chevy, and as always, I'm joined by my buddy Casey. Casey, how are you this Memorial Day weekend?
Alan, I'll tell you what, I'm ready to go back to work.
Really? That's odd.
Yeah, too much yard work, too much screaming kids, not enough hobby time.
I mean, it's been raining constantly past couple of weekends, so I mean, should not be a lot of yard work to do.
No, it means that I haven't gotten it done the last few weekends, so it's kind of all built up.
The joys of home ownership.
Yeah, I think I spent 3 hours working on my yard.
Oh.
But anyways, nobody wants to hear about my yard work. Let's talk about our week in hobby. What did you do?
This week I did actually this is a productive week for Tuesday. I dusted off the Grey Knights battle foam box, took it in, got challenged to a 40k game, and learned that 10-inch templates from a Baneblade hurt.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, it was a very odd game. It was a 1680 points. Pretty much the guy's like, hey, this is all I have. I'm bringing it tonight. And I'm like, sure, I haven't played in a while. Still need to learn 7th ed. And yeah, it was rough. But game came down to 10 to 8, and he got me on objectives.
Now, I'm going to say that I think that you're the better man than I am in this case. Because if I rolled up and somebody said, hey, you want to play a pickup game? I say, yeah, sure, that's great. And they plunk down the Baneblade? No, I would actually just start picking up all my stuff and say, nope, that's not cool for a pickup game. So, now, granted, this is my personal opinion, but things like super heavies, that's best kept amongst friends, or something that you let the person know about ahead of time.
Very true. But we're getting into that point, like with 7th ed, where everything is rolling into one. You could take super heavies, big walkers, stompers, and all that. It's becoming the meta, at least here, to at least see at least one Knight Titan on the tabletop.
Agree. And I think that a Knight Titan is something just a little bit different. I mean, most armies aren't going to have too much trouble dealing with a Knight Titan, especially once you learn how to deal with them. But something like a Baneblade is just a little bit different in terms of it. And that's really a model where if your army isn't ready to take on something like that, it's quite easy for that model just to table you by itself.
Very true. But to my credit, I did have a lot of cover and line of sight blocking to my advantage. I also had 2 Dread Knights with the Nemesis swords. So Baneblade took out some units, but it got pretty beat up in the end and actually went Nova. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun to have that D strength explosion go off.
And so that was Tuesday. Thursday, I went and brought my new bag full of trolls, troll bloods, to the War Machine night and got thoroughly stomped there. Another learning curve for me, and you know what? Lock and load's coming down the line, so there's a lot of people here looking to buff up before the big show.
We'll talk about lock and load in just a little bit. But how are you liking War Machine / Hordes?
So I started with War Machine. It was I mean the big clunky robot walking tanks. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Getting into the game though, it's like you can't take a lot of those. The mechanic of focus really hinders taking a lot of a big giant wall of metal, and the War Machine is very infantry based in that regards. Flip side, hordes, uh, you actually need your beast to generate fury for your caster, and I find it more appealing that way because you can do a little bit more with a war beast than you can with a war machine. Just how you the play style. So it's very much a learning curve flopping over, but I do like it.
Well, good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. At the end of the day, that's what matters, right?
Yep, very true. You got to love the games you play, otherwise they just collect dust or you sell them. But that was it for gaming. I did do painting though this week.
Well, let's see what you got, son.
All right, I don't have any better photos to share, but I do have this commission conversion from a buddy. This is uh, from I forget the game. See,
It's a GW game.
it's a
It has
GW game,
Blood
but
Angels versus Gene Stealers.
there's so many things like that. Space Hulk. See, there we go. A little bit of push, and I got it. But this is a buddy's librarian that I'm painting up for him.
That's pretty cool. Here's the interesting thing: is I know exactly who that's for, and he's a pretty good painter himself. Is he just wanting a piece done by you, or has he got a
No,
lot of other work on his table that I should be watching out for?
he helped me out during last semester with a project with his company. So I was like,
Oh, okay.
hey, let me pay you back somehow. Let me paint up a Storm Raven or something like that. He's like, oh, here, you can paint this up. I'm like, okay, done.
Gotcha. Anything else you got on your paint desk?
I have this guy here. This is Scaldy from Troll Bloods. I'm actually doing this for a competition for Facebook.
Oh, cool. Is that for WGC?
Yes, it's their War Machine Worldwide, War Hordes Worldwide. There's a better photo of it from tonight's progress.
Good deal.
Yeah, I'm trying a new technique. The sketching or blocking, as some people call it. You take your miniature and you just kind of put down the base coats on everything, and then just kind of work up from there.
That's actually how I usually do mine. So
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was a technique. Awesome.
yeah, it's a technique. It does help in some ways because you have. If normally I just do one layer at a time and go up from there, and this kind of does help a little bit in regards to. I mean, you see the overall flow of everything, and then just kind of work up from different spots. And if you get one spot dirty, you can touch it up as you go.
That's what I like about it. I've always felt it's a little bit faster to do it that way.
Yeah, since this is not a super competitive competition, I'm doing tabletop ready or a little bit over tabletop standard. So this should be done this week. I should have some finished photos on my Facebook page, and I'll share them next week as well. Casey, what have you done this week?
I've been really busy, but it doesn't look like I've done anything. So my week could easily be labeled as adventures in airbrushing. So been talking about the last couple of weeks on. I got an airbrush. I got the setup all set up. I got some primers from you. And last week I sat down. I was so excited. I fired up the air compressor. I filled it up. I got this. Okay, so Badger called it the
Stynylrez.
Stynylrez?
Stynylrez.
What? We're going to call it Badger Primer. because Stynylrez res is dumb. I have an idea why they call it that, but Badger Primer. So I grabbed it. It says it's good right out of the bottle. I shake it like a million times, for like 10 minutes. I'm whacking this thing on tables. I'm working this sucker like a maraca.
Back to your high school days, eh?
Moving right along. Yeah. One for Alan. Get it all shaken up. Air compressors. I got some of my myth models that I'm going to start spraying on, and I go, well, a couple little drops because I heard a few drops can go a long way, and then okay, air's on, good, air's on, pull it back, and I get nothing, like nothing's coming out of this thing. Huh. Okay, well then I started thinking, it's pretty thick stuff, and so then I go and I've got like Windex and some distilled water right there in bottles. So I'm like, oh, I'll just take a little bit of Windex because everybody seems to like that. So put a little Windex in the cup, swirl it around, thin it out, and it starts working a little bit, but I start sputtering. It's like blowing all over the place. Like I'm really just putting colored water on the model at the point, and it's just like blowing all over. It's not drying, and I'm like, oh man, that's not right. Yeah, and then after a minute, like it just stops working altogether. Okay, so I sit there, I read through the instruction manual, and I disassemble my airbrush for the first time. I was so nervous.
Yeah,
So
that
it was
could
like,
be
oh,
yeah, that could be a very detrimental thing for the first timers.
yeah. Fortunately, I have really steady hands, and I like to read manuals and look at videos before I do stuff. That's the engineer in me. I pull it all apart, no problem. And yeah, like everything is all totally gummed up with this thing. So clean the needle all off. I flush out the cup and the nozzle and everything. Get that all cleaned up. Very, very delicately, take the needle and align it back up, and slip it in there and get everything all put back together. Okay, great. So now I'm like, what I should do? I'm going to go and look at the Angel Heraldez A to Z book. I've got it. It's up on my shelf. I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, he mixes it on the side before he pours it in. Ah, that's a good idea. That's what I did wrong. So, I have a little piece of plastic out there, and okay, another couple of drops, and then some more stuff. I pour that on. Okay, yeah, good. And I'm like, hey, I've even got a pin cap. I'm like Angel Heraldez right now.
Oh, using the secret
I
web.
got a pin cap. Oh yeah, so I go and I stir that all up, and I'm like, hey, it looks like milk to me. Yeah, if milk was black. Pro tip, kids, don't drink black milk. It's not racist. It's hygienic.
Drink
like,
blue
okay,
milk.
So I go and I take my diluted mixture and I put it in the airbrush. Okay, oh yeah, that looks a lot better now, right? That's something you'd imagine an airbrush could shoot. So air on, pull it back, and just oh yeah, this is great looking, yeah. I try to put up on the model, and it's just like blowing water on it all over the place. Like it's horrible. And I'm like, well, maybe just a little bit, so I try to start easing it off. And it was just horrible. And I'm like, what's the deal with this stuff? Like, I started thinking, man, maybe it's this airbrush. Like, this is a $25 airbrush that I'm using. Could this be the problem? And I start thinking about it. I'm like, well, then I start messing with like compressors and everything. And I'm running about 20 PSI. Because again, that's what Angel tells me I should be running at. And it's just not working for me. Like I spend 2 days on it. So finally sit there, I started looking at reviews. I'm like, maybe I'm thinning this stuff down incorrectly, or there's something I'm missing, right? Well, the people who start using it, everybody says, yeah, it's really thick. Either they're using a really big needle or nozzle, like a 0.5, and I'm using a 0.3, or they're using it at a much higher PSI. Like one guy was actually using it at 60 PSI.
It's
Yeah, I know, right?
pretty tough. I mean, I don't think I've ever taken mine up that high for, but yeah, I guess it does make sense. I mean, you're going to be pushing that through that little tight space real quickly.
Right, and that was, it's about 3 times higher than what I was thinking I should be using. Maybe even twice as high as like the really high end. But anyways, so I go, all right, let's try it. Straight out of the bottle. I don't mix it up. Okay, one more time here. Put the drops in the airbrush. Crank it up to where it's 60. Air on. It's like, trying to control a fire hose and get my model there. Paint on and it worked perfectly. Like it came out beautifully. Like it didn't come on thick. It came on really smooth, really even. It dried. It finished really, really nice. If anything was a little wet, I just used a little bit of air to kind of blow it off and cool it. And now, granted, 3 or 4 drops gets me only through about 3 more models. So I might be going a little bit heavy on there. And it seems like it's going maybe a little further. I'm not sure about that.
Well, you do, especially with the gravity fed, you do, I believe it's like an 80% paint usage compared to a siphon fed, I think is a 30%. So you do get a lot more efficiency out of your airbrush, especially, I mean, trying to do that by hand with paintbrush, you're going to be using up a lot more paint than you are with just using your airbrush. So it is more efficient, and there is, yes, a little bit of a learning curve with airbrushing.
Yeah. And I've been doing a lot of review on it, and everybody kind of agrees that Style and Res is really, really thick. And actually, not all airbrushes seem to handle it well. So I want to try, because I mean, honestly, like if you start diluting primer, you're just going to start getting paint at that point. If you over dilute it. And so I want to try and keep it so we're using it just straight out of the bottle. But I'm going to try and start dialing down the pressure a little bit. Maybe try and get it down to 30 or 40 psi instead of 20. I might have to up the nozzle to maybe a 0.5, instead of the 0.3, and kind of take it from there. So I'm still experimenting with it, and that's exactly why I picked these models, was because I knew I could just, dork them all up, and in the end, I don't care. If all else fails, I still got my cans of Rust-Oleum I can break out.
Yeah, I mean it's a tool, so you have to know how to use it and where the application is. But I mean, the real difference between regular paint, like regular bottles of GW paint, compared to like the new uh, airbrushing line that Ford World released last week, it just mixed for ready for a bottle. So I've got my little line here of airbrushing paints. It's the same paints, but they've diluted it. So you're actually just buying less paint per bottle. So, I mean, Steinores being a little bit thicker just means you're getting actually more use out of it if you cut it down a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think I'm okay with cutting it down a little bit. I mean, I think I could safely cut it about, do like a 90% or maybe even an 80%. Because I was doing what was close to about a 1-to-1, 50-50 mix. And that's where I was really starting to have the problems. So I could see thinning it just a little bit, but not by much.
Two things I would say: invest in a grunge brush. I have one on my airbrushing station, just a regular old like number 4 or number 3 round brush, cheapest thing I could find that wouldn't tear apart. And I use that to mix inside the cup. But one thing I always do is I do water or my the thinner first, and then the paint. Because then you'll have the thinner, you have the thinner stuff down at the bottom, and so you're not trying to mix up that big glob of whatever paint.
That's a good call. That's a really good call. So that's what I've been doing. I've been experimenting with this airbrush, still experimenting with it, but I'm happy to say that I've been making a lot of progress.
That's good. Then we'll see Golden Demon.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, baby. Or I'm just going to go out and buy like the whole Minotaur paint range or something. Or Minotaur. So, okay. Change gears, huh?
All right.
You see how smooth that transition was? Didn't even bother. We're talking about something new.
You wanted to kill your kids earlier today, so I mean, it's your mind's elsewhere.
The fact that I'm still like talking coherent or semi-coherently is a credit to me.
All right. How about this? Let's talk Feast of Blades. Last week and the previous weeks, we were asking, what's going on with Feast of Blades? We finally got our answer this week.
It wasn't a good answer. So, on the official Feast of Blades Facebook page, we got a post saying that Chad, the head honcho of Feast of Blades, has been going through some life changes. Right on it, doesn't need to, but that effectively Blades was for sale. If you ever wanted to buy a gaming convention in a box, this is the time to do it, folks.
Yes, and that is sad news indeed. I mean, Feast of Blades was a premier grand tournament here in the Western states, and to see it go, it's real rough. But we're actually, it's wondering what would happen if somebody else picks it up. I mean, is it? That's a change of hands completely. I mean, are they going to keep the same people? Um, is it going to be the same format? Is it even going to be in the same state? It's interesting to see.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of probing for you folks. It turns out that what is for sale is the name, all of the property that goes along with it. So all the tables, all the terrain, computers, printers, name tag holders, dice, even down to the electrical cords that they were using for this sucker are up for sale, along with being able to use their website, the Facebook page, and all of that sort of stuff. And so I'm guessing that if someone does decide to pick it up, they can take it wherever they want. I mean, there's no reason why you and I, couldn't take out a small business loan, pick this up, and move it over to Salt Lake and have Feast of Blades SLC.
But yes, that's very interesting. I mean, if any of you out there is from our Denver meta and know anything about what's going on, you guys are the closest thing we have to word on the street. I mean, this was your convention. I mean, what's going to happen? Is somebody going to take up the reins and produce Feast, or are you guys going to split it off and do smaller conventions? Let us know.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I think everybody would love to see Feast of Blades go on in some in some capacity. However, I could very easily see 3 or 4 local stores just deciding to buy him out of all of his terrain tables and just kind of part the thing off, which would be really sad. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully somebody picks it up, and we're going to Feast of Blades, a year from now, year and a half.
Very true. It probably won't happen this year, but we'll probably see a resurrection next year.
I sure hope so, because honestly, Chad, if you're out there listening, it was a really good time. You throw a great party. It was a great time to go to. It was something that I was, me and all my friends were willing to make an 8-9 hour road trip for. So, but even if it doesn't happen, Alan, isn't there something else going on over in Denver now?
I do know I think it's like a local event. They're having a War Machine tournament in a brewery.
And you just happen to play War Machine now. And you'd like to drink.
Very true. So we'll have to see.
Now, I know for a while the Krug was talking about doing something in a brewery in Denver. Is this related?
I'm not sure. Speaking of Facebook posts, this week we saw a post from the Krug saying that they've had some changes in their podcast as well, because podcasts are very heavily edited to make sure that the content is correct. I believe it's Boss. Yeah, I believe one of their main editor had some life changes, and that's why they haven't put out anything new since then. So.
Oh wow. Well, I hope everything is. Boss Hammer, for you guys don't know, he is an Infinity champion, a source of gaming knowledge. He actually, if you guys enjoyed having Carlos come out to Feast of Blade, one of the things, Boss was one of the primary people responsible for it. He's kind of one of the quiet, unsung pillars of the U.S. Infinity community. So, Boss, I hope everything's going well for you, man. If there's anything we can do to help you out, let us know.
But yeah, the Mile High State, seems like everything's falling apart there.
But yeah, they just legalized marijuana, and all of a sudden everything is falling apart. Everybody's having life changes that they're going through. Is this a coincidence?
It's the up and coming company to invest in. So.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, soon we'll see the Krug for sale here right next to Feast of Blades.
Speaking of Infinity, let's move on to our main topic of the show. A few weeks ago, we showed you the photos of the new Tohaa, the Keltar Specialist, with their Pokemon. And now we actually have rules for them.
Yeah, so how about we start off by actually looking at the Keltar Specialist, huh?
All right, I will pull that up.
Oh, I beat you to it.
Oh,
sucker. All right. So let's take a look at the Keltar Specialists. First and foremost, you'll see that they are availability 2, so you can take 2 of them. A light infantry, or line infantry, whichever you want to call. Regular, they do not have the Tohaa special rule, so you can't put them in tridents. They're 4/4, close combat 14, ballistic skill 11, phys 11, whip 14, which is abnormally good. Armor 1, BTS 3, 1 wound. So,
and no symbiote
you look
armor.
at you say, and no symbiote armor. So, as far as Tohaa go, these guys are nothing to write home about. In fact, you say, well, let's see what else we got here. Well, chain of command is always nice to have, especially because Tohaa tend to have a few more killy commanders who you really like to have them up on the front lines. Light shotgun, flash pulse, combi rifle, flash pulse, pistol, electric pulse. Really not a whole lot of interesting things going on here.
I don't know. Electric pulse is pretty evil in close combat when you're being hit.
True, but in Infinity, if you're in close combat, you've probably done something wrong. There are a few troops out there that do close combat well, but in general, it's not where you want to be, especially with these guys with close combat 14 and physique 11. However, they also have symbiomates and symbio bombs. Our Pokemon. So this is the point, Alan, where you ask, what do they do?
Oh yes. What does a symbiote bomb do other than look like a Pokemon?
I'm glad you asked, Alan. Let's take a look here. Fortunately,
we have rules for them now.
Yes, our good friends over at Corvus Belly went and brought out rules for symbiomates and symbio bombs. So let's start with the symbiomates because these are a little more straightforward. So symbiote armor is pretty awesome. Would you agree, Alan?
Yes, it's nice to have that extra bit of armor as you're running along the field. The only problem is you're very flammable.
Yes, you are. And it's actually one of the main reasons why I don't take the Gorgos, is because you fail a single fire roll and you are dead. Like, dead.
DED.
However, but let's say you bring your Keltar specialist with a couple of symbiomates. Now, what you're allowed to do is you're allowed to assign those symbiomates to other models during your deployment phase. Specifically, these models have to be on the board, so you can't put it on an AD combat troop or like a TO infiltrator. And they also have to have active symbiote armor. And they basically just tag along. They have to stay in base-to-base combat, and they don't actually count as a model. They're more of a marker.
Okay, so like not the Fast Panda, Fast Panda, right?
Even less than a Fast Panda, because a Fast Panda is still a model that you can target after it's been deployed. So yes, kind of sort of like a Fast Panda if you want to go there, but they work a little different. So they're really more of like a piece of equipment that's always there. You just have a model because it looks fun, if you like the model. You can't see the face I'm making, which is probably good. Anyways, so the symbiomate. So let's say I go and I stick a symbiomate on my Gorgos. And this dude walks around the corner, takes his heavy flamethrower, and says, "It's time for you to die, Mr. Gorgos." Well, as you can read here...
And I'm going to show the new photo of the Neptunes just to make you Tohaa players love me.
Yep. It's cool looking. His face looks like a colander or something, but let me make pasta with my face. Anywho, so basically what the symbiote does is it's going to absorb that first fire hit. And the model who owns the symbiote does not take any damage and does not have to perform an armor roll.
For that order.
Now, for that order.
Okay.
So if you had yes, there is a balancing factor there. And once it's consumed.
Okay.
And it no longer has any effect.
So you have your Tohaa, and then he's in a symbiote armor, and then the symbiote mate. So that's 3 levels of protection.
Yeah. Yep. However, again, they have to have symbiote armor, and they can only have one of them attached at one time. And also negates the fact that they have to use a guts roll. So it's a very defensive use of it. Now what you can do is we have the symbiote bomb.
Dun dun dun.
So a symbiote bomb is an offensive use. So once again, you'll attach the symbiote bomb to something that has active symbiote armor during your deployment phase. But you get to spend a short skill that allows it to expend a Ferroware tactic. And we can see Corvus Belli has created a nice little table for us because we all love tables. If my computer can catch up. Think of this as like a hacker type attack, but it's not hacking, so enemy hackers aren't going to get to respond to it. So this is actually would be considered a comms attack, and so the person who you're rolling against it would get to respond with a reset type attack. So, and you can see here these different attacks. They all have fun different names. You have different attack modifiers. Most of them don't do anything except for Hell Zone, and they do damage. They have a burst, and they have effects. So, in your target, you can target anybody who has wounds. Wounds. It is a short skill, or they can be used as an ARO. And you can see here, this one just removes wounds. Eraser actually puts the target into the isolated state, which is always fun. Then Hellzone is it's a burst 2, but it's Double Trouble Specialized Edition, and it also has the fun Immobilized 1 state. So these actually do some fairly nasty things on the offensive side.
Yeah, that'd put down a heavy infantry pretty well.
It'll, especially when you see that we're just talking about zone of control. So you don't even need line of sight for most of these. You're just espousing pheromones out there. There are also 2 support functions that they can do. One of them creates a Nimbus cloud, like a template-sized Nimbus cloud within their zone of control. And that lasts for until the end of the player's active turn or until they cancel it. Or a white noise zone. And that's the one where people with multispectral visors can't actually draw line of sight through that zone. So pretty nice for throwing up like a quick smoke screen.
So the real question is this going to be an auto-include for Tohaa players? I mean, you're looking at 21 to 26 points.
You know, it's not overly expensive. And that's for the symbiomates. Now you can go dirt cheap and go with a pair of symbiote bombs for 15 points. And that's not horrible. Now, and the nice thing with that 21 and the 26 points is you're also getting the chain of command rule, which is kind of difficult in the Tohaa army to get a hold of.
So being our resident Tohaa player, would you put these in your list?
You know, originally, we were talking before the show, and we were asking ourselves, is this an auto-include? And I originally said no. However, I think I'm going to go back on this one, and I'm actually going to say, well, it's not going to be an auto-include. However, you're going to see it a lot. Like, I'll never call you foolish if you don't put it in there, but I think that this fills a very specific role. Now, the light shotgun, flash pulse, the model himself isn't what you're interested in. You're interested in getting that chain of command into your army. And then you have a pair of symbiomates. So it's really letting other parts of your army become more offensive. So maybe you have a couple of Extros. I love the Ekros Lieutenant. He's really got offensively tough. You can throw him in a triad, and you can just send him barreling down the board and do a lot of damage. The problem with that is if he's your lieutenant, you have a risk of losing him, which Chain of Command negates, and you also he's really immune to fire, and he's going to be taking a lot of fire, which the symbiote mate helps with. So I feel like this could do a lot for an army.
Now, what if now it helps with fire, but what happens if you go up against a list that doesn't have any fire in it?
Right, at that point, symbiomates aren't going to give you a whole lot. The Chain of Command
cheerleader.
Yep, and to be fair, I mean, Chain of Command is always a nice thing to have in your army. Like I said, I would never call you an idiot for taking this. And I think with the way that some of Tohaa's best lieutenants, being the Ekros or Nima, are really offensive characters and are the ones you want to be throwing down the field. So I really think that it's a good idea to have Chain of Command. Now, that being said, if you bring them, everybody knows exactly what's going on. They know your lieutenant is something that's running down the field, because that just makes the most sense. And if you kill all the Ekros, you know that the killer has the Chain of Command. So if you're interested in lieutenant hunting, which I don't think is really as prevalent in 3 or really as big of an issue anymore, you can do it fairly easily with Tohaa. But at least bring the symbiote bombs, because those are always something that's going to be useful. It's going to be kind of a free zone of control type attack. So, yeah, I'm always leaning towards an auto include for these guys, because for their price, they're in the 20s, only 0.15 support weapon cost. Tohaa can be a little hard with support weapon cost, but I definitely think that they're worth it to increase the durability of your symbiote troops.
And you get those amazing symbiote bomb miniatures.
Okay, now technically, they don't even count as a miniature, so you can just use a marker, right? Please?
I know. I mean, it's got that big smile. It says, I want to be your friend. I want to take a bullet for you, pal. Let me burn.
Yeah. There's actually kind of a fun piece of fluff there. And, because they love sticking the fluff in there, and they say, oh, yeah, the Tohaa love these cute and cuddly little guys, but at the same time, they really get attached to them because they know that they're a one-use only type piece of equipment, essentially, and they don't mind letting it die.
No, that's why you don't name your chickens.
Very, very true. Which is kind of hilarious because we have a coworker who does.
All right, anything else? I mean, I know you really love your Tohaa, and you might actually start playing them again. And now you can bring a Gargos with Pikachu.
Yeah, they take one model that I really don't love, and they combine it with another model that I really don't love, and now all of a sudden I'm really interested. Screw you, Corvus.
See, they got into your brain. Carlos is everywhere.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So, but that's got for tonight, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it looks like there's actually should be some news tomorrow from Corvus Belli. I'm not sure what it is. They're teasing it on their socials. Maybe we'll hear about Archon Falls for Gen Con. Maybe.
I can't say.
You won't say, but we can guess.
I can't say.
Because Carlos is everywhere.
Well, that's been a great show for everybody tonight.
One of these days, we'll make sure Casey loosens up those lips and tells us everything he knows. But until then, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to tune in next week. Please comment down below. Let us know if you're a Tohaa player, if you're a Denver player, if you like painting miniatures. Put it down in the comments. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to see more. Casey, anything else?
That's all I've got for this evening, Alan. As always, if there's an interesting product or a piece of news you'd like us to cover, feel free to shoot us an email at theatomicsalt@gmail.com. This is the Atomic Salt, and we've just blown your mind.
All right. Have a good week, guys.